Hi there, and welcome to the first episode of the Dee-Brief. And if you are joining me live, then welcome, and it is lovely to see you. And in a moment, I'm going to ask you to drop your location, where you're calling from, to just let me know where you are in the country or in the world. Where are you watching from? It would be lovely to hear from you. So let me know and I'll take a look at that. So thank you for coming to this first episode of the Dee-Brief. And we're going to talk about the 3 secrets to grabbing people's attention instantly. So, I don't know if you're like me, perhaps, and you are constantly, at the moment, especially distracted by phones and all of the stuff that's just going on around us. There's just so much news, isn't there? Well, I decided to go on a little sabbatical recently. I had to take myself away from all of the news and all of the stuff that was going on. So for 2 weeks, I had a little detox. So I came off social media. Well, I didn't come off social media, but I didn't look at the news and I didn't do any kind of politics podcasts. So I'm not sure if you're like me and that's been affecting you too. But the more people that this affects, the more we need to get into people's attention. So I talked the other day in my newsletter that went out, and I'd love for you to subscribe to that as well. I talked about this thing called the attention tariff because, I've been reading and watching about Donald Trump's tariff this week, and I'm sure we're all been overtaken by that. And it's almost distracting. You're almost not able to do your work. So it's taking attention up in your brain, maybe if you're like me, but also it's taking up attention in the brains of those people that you're trying to communicate with. So it's not just now, this is really always been a thing, but more so with social media. But it just feels like it really is accelerating and getting more and more difficult to crack into people's brains inside their head. So let's take a look at this chart. I thought, well, is it just me or are other people going through this as well? So you can see that, for me, it's first happened in COVID. You couldn't really stay away from the news. Otherwise, you wouldn't really know what was going on. But for me, also, then it went down a bit. Then as Trump started coming into the news more and more, this happened a lot more. So you can see from this chart, I wanted something really up to date. So this just says about American adults. So we might not be as high, but you can imagine that probably the trends are similar, that more and more people since January, February, March are watching the news, but also the grey boxes are more and more people, well, less and less people are tuning out, but some people are tuning out. And the main two reasons for that is that they're worn out by the news, or it's so hard to avoid it, they're actively taking steps to avoid it, like I did with my little detox. So you can see that it's not just me that maybe is feeling overwhelmed, other people are too, and I'm sure that some of you are also. So if you are feeling that way, then let me know in the comments. Now, studies suggest that people have shorter and shorter attention spans, but when you first start off, it's about capturing people's attention in the first 30 seconds. And depending on what study you look at, it says between the first 1/10 of a second to the first 30 seconds. So saying 7 seconds to grab some attention is a pretty good rule of thumb. So, you know, that's why it's really more important to go through these 3 steps to grabbing attention easily, and how to get people in on your presentations and listening to your messages. It doesn't have to be about presentations. It might even be in an email, on a phone call, on a webinar, on a team meeting. You know, when I say presentation, it just means any time when you are wanting to speak and communicate with other people. Interviews, it can be any kind of thing like that as well. So before I go into that, just very quickly, what is the Dee-Brief show? So let me take you through just quickly. Firstly, I want to share with you distilled lived experiences, leadership lessons and light bulb moments, some of the things that I've come across in my 17 years. And I've been really privileged to have been inside lots of people's brains as well. So I've worked in groups and in one-to-ones with leaders and across all sorts of industries. So I want to bring you the learnings from that, so that I know what's important to them and the struggles that they have. They're not just the struggles for them, there's often some common struggles. And then I want to help you have a clearer and more impactful communications, as we need to, as it becomes more and more difficult to cut through. And it's going to be a weekly show. It's going to be every Friday live across Facebook, across YouTube and LinkedIn. And it's going to be just 30 minutes. So I really want you to invest 30 minutes in your own personal development. And it's going to be cumulative. So as you join, then you can accumulate your 30 minutes. And over time, that would be the equivalent to a full day's training. But also the learnings will be built on top of each other. So even if you don't manage to catch us live, you can watch a rerun. And the idea being that then you can talk about that topic for that week. So if you're sharing it with your teams, for example, live or not live, you can talk about it in your team meeting, and then you can move on to the next topic the next week. So do in discussion, whether you're live or not, you can talk it in the comments here, and I'll come and revisit this thread so I can look at the comments. And then you can also interact and ask questions as you like as well, as you go along. So that's why it's live. So secret number 1, the first thing is to think about them, not you. So no matter how many people I work with when it comes to meeting skills or presentation skills, I find that people are thinking about themselves rather than thinking about the audience. And that's obviously a little bit of a mistake. So there's 2 places where you need to be thinking about them and not you. The first place is in your mind. So I'm not going to talk too much about my public speaking monkeys. Those of you that know me know that I love my little public speaking monkey, this little fella. And he talks to us and he maybe shows, as he's saying, "You're rubbish, you're not good enough, nobody likes what you're saying. You're not going to answer the questions," whatever your monkey is saying to you. "You're not good enough, you're stupid." Your monkey shows and your fear leaks out on your face, and then your doubt becomes visible. So if you start your communications with your little monkey, then let me sit him over here. If you start your communications with your monkey, sit down monkey, people are going to see, right? So you can get through this. You can do some work around it. I've written a book called Taming Your Public Speaking Monkeys that will help you. So people, even people who feel sick before they were presenting have been helped with this technique. So if you want to know more about that, then the book is on Amazon. But that is not what this is about. This is about skills particularly. We can cover monkeys in a different session if you're interested. But for now, let's talk about the skills. So once you've sorted out the monkey in your mind, the next thing you need to do is think about them, not you, in your message. So what it is that you're communicating. So let's take a look at an example. I have had so many people start a pitch to me. When I was in marketing, people used to pitch to me with their businesses, or an agency would come and pitch. So let's take the context of a general presentation. And people would say to me, "Oh, right, before I begin, let me tell you a little bit about me. I've won 30 awards. I've been in the industry 40 years. We employ 294 people across 600 million countries." Oh, do you know, I even told one of the agencies, I said to them before they came, I said, "Please don't give me a load of stuff about yourself at the beginning of the presentation." And they did it anyway. I couldn't believe it. I had to sit there through like 10 minutes of them telling me all about them. The thing is, the listener is not interested in you yet because you haven't told them why they should be. So you've got to start with what's interesting about them to them. So I'm not saying you have to say these exact words, but here's an example of what you could say. You could say, "Well, I've worked in the industry for over 40 years and I hear leaders like you tell me constantly that they want to work on their business, not in their business. Is that something that you would be of interest to talk to you about?" Yeah. So you capture what it is that they're interested in and talk to them about that. So for example, here's another one. Let's say this is a virtual meeting and you're in a team meeting and you've maybe been asked to update on what you've been doing, right? Just a general update. So you might start with, "Let me share my slides on what I've been doing this week." And what that ends up being like is a justification of what your job is, you know, like justify why you're getting paid, where you don't need to do that. And it's not very interesting either, to be honest. What would be even better is for you to say, "Let's start by looking at the area you mentioned was important, Doris, for example. I know you were talking about the tariffs. That's really important to you. So let me tell you what I've been doing in regard to the tariffs." Right? So and if you don't know, you might ask them. So you've been told to do an update. You go, "Look, I've got 3 main projects that I'm working on at the moment. And I'm happy to tell you about all 3, but is one of them more important so I know how to prioritize my time for you?" That might be a good thing to do. So if you'd like to get a copy of this cheat sheet, I've got several examples of different situations: corporate backgrounds, slide-led presentations, face-to-face meetings, emails. I've got a few examples here. So I've got a little cheat sheet for you. And if you'd like to do that, then please do sign up to the newsletter. And I'll give you a QR code to scan later so that you can sign up to the newsletter. That'd be great. And let's just have a little pause there, and then we'll go on to secret number 2. So whilst you're having a pause, I'd like you to think about what you might do differently at your next presentation coming up, or your next meeting, or your next virtual call. How will you think about them and not yourself? How will you start your meeting asking about them, getting information about them, telling them about something they're interested in, rather than be thinking about your own monkeys or your own message? Now, you will have a chance to get to your message later and the things you want to communicate, but that's for later. We're not talking about that on this webinar, on this live show. We're going to talk about that actually in a future episode, but these are all going to build on each other. So let's have a look then at secret 2. Well, secret 2 is making sure you hook them really early on, just as you say hello. So there's 2 traits that we instantly judge people on when we are meeting them in person, and especially when we're virtual. Firstly, the question is, can I trust this person? And that's all about being warm and friendly, being kind and sincere, making sure your body language is natural and your monkeys, these little fellas, aren't showing through and making you all nervous and scared. Because if you look a bit nervous and scared, then I'm thinking, well, they look nervous and scared. What's wrong with them? Can I trust them? They're not trustworthy. They're shifty. Maybe they're telling a lie. Then the second thing that you need to have a look at is their competence. So you're assessing them. Once you know if you can trust them, then you're assessing them on competence, whether they're intelligent, whether they're skilled at what they do. Now, you may have already come across this research from Amy Cuddy. She did a TED Talk and 74 million people have watched that. That's a pretty good TED Talk, right? So she talks about this, and she also does talks about a thing called a power pose where you're stood like this. So if you haven't seen that, then look that up. It's a way to make sure you have a confident stance. You don't have to do it in your presentation. You kind of do it before your presentation as you're getting ready. But she says that people want to feel safe before they care about how capable you are. And that is absolutely true. So let's have a look at making sure, what do you do about this then? Then two things. The first thing is, it's really important for you to build rapport at the beginning of your communication, your call, your email, even your meeting, whatever it is. So be smiley, be friendly, be open in your posture. And if you know about personality styles, I do a lot of work talking about insights personality styles. And in my book, I talk about, in my other book, High Performance Presentations, I talk about presenter personality styles, knowing whether they're information type, sociable, results, or caring. So if you kind of have a knowledge of what your audience is made up of, normally they're made up of all of them, but maybe you have kind of like a bias. If you're talking to engineering teams, for example, they might be biased towards the information preference. If you're talking to sales, maybe they're biased towards the results and the sociable, or the results and the information. So you might bias how you're doing this, but you want to build rapport first. And building rapport is not telling you how great I am. Secondly, and remember, this is in order, after you've done the rapport, then you're okay to show your competence. So that's about communicating your ideas clearly, speaking confidently, and making sure that people understand your expertise. You don't have to tell them about all of these things, but it might be through stories. It might just be through delivering information that they see that you're competent in what you're doing. So think about, next time, what I want you to do is think about, what might you do differently now? So I'm just going to give you a few moments to have a little think about what you might do differently now. And if you have any questions or thoughts, please do put them into the comments box, and I'll be having a little look in the comments box. So thank you. It's great to see some of your comments. Thank you very much. So some people dialing in from Norway. Hi, Czech Republic, the UK, West Midlands, Nigel. Hi, Nigel. Nice to see you. Hi, David. Hi, Jill. That's lovely to see you from Manchester, London. Someone from Christchurch, Aylesbury. Thank you for letting me know where you're from. So if you are typing away there, let me know now. What I'd really like to know from you is, what might you do differently now you've talked about the two things, like making the message about not about me, but about them. And secondly, learning about trust first and then respect. What might you do differently in your presentation coming up? Think about something that you've got coming up, maybe an important phone call, maybe a team meeting, and feel free to pop in the comments what you might do differently, because this is about you taking action, right? Knowledge is great, I think, but taking action is really important. So, David, you're going to be thinking more about how you come across before you start presenting. That's really good, because we spend so much time, don't we, thinking about what we're presenting, and then we just kind of start. And we maybe haven't thought about how we're going to start. And of course, if they're not listening and then they're on their phones, it doesn't really matter how great your presentation is, does it? Because then they're not listening to you. So thank you so much for sharing some of your thoughts and questions. Hi, nice to see you from Harpenden. Thank you very much. Good. Welcome. Hi, Paxi. Nice to see some people here that I worked with many years ago, and I haven't seen you for ages. So I know I can't actually see you, but I can see you in the comments. So it's lovely. Please do talk to me in the comments so that I know you're there. Lovely to see you. Let's move on to secret 3 then. So secret 3 is about engaging early on. Why do we need to do this? Well, because 49% of people say that they can lose interest in a speaker very early on. If the introduction isn't engaging, they'll lose interest. And you know that everybody's got their phones in meetings these days, unless you actually put them away. I did see that once. I think it was in Norway, actually. We were doing a training and there was a phone nursery, they called it. And you had to put your phone into a basket, into a wicker basket. And that was, I like the term phone nursery. I hadn't heard of that before. And people are most likely to check their phone at the beginning of the meeting. I guess they want to make sure that they haven't got to do something, or maybe they're not that interested. But so the beginning of the meeting is the high risk area. So make sure you catch them early. So early on, what are you going to do? You need to engage them and get them hooked in. So there's 3 ways, and those of you who've worked with me, you know I like my 3s. So there's 3 ways to engage people early on. And they're H's. So there's hooking the head, there's hooking the heart, and then there's the hands, activating the hands. So let's go through each of these one by one. So hooking the head, that's about talking to, and maybe as I'm talking, you can pop in the chats. What do you think you could do now to hook in people with the head? And what you want to do is all of these 3. So this is going to be attractive to the results people especially, and to our information personality types. What are you going to do? You're going to give them some facts. Anything else in the chat that you can think that you're going to do in order to get people hooked in their head? You can use structure, and we'll be talking about the Simply Amazing structure that I recommend you use next time. That's the topic of the next live, which is next Friday, 11 o'clock. So make sure you put that and future lives in your diary. And maybe having some statistics that spark curiosity. So we're just talking specifically at the moment about the attention grabbing at the beginning. So a fact or something that makes people go, oh, I didn't know that. In stirring the heart, you can talk about stories. So you might want to share a story or build an emotional connection with somebody. And they don't have to be personal stories. They can be, and that's good for showing vulnerability. But they can also be customer stories. So like a case study is a customer story, how difficult they were finding communication before they worked with me. So they were feeling sick, or they were feeling nervous, or they were not being listened, constantly talked over. But once they did some work with me and they learned how to have a clear structure and to gather attention, then what happened is the next time they're at a conference or a meeting, they really got their message through, or they're at a conference and they scored really high scores and the best speaker of the conference, something like that. So you can tell stories, doesn't have to be about yourself. And then the final one is to activate your hands. Well, not your hands, but their hands. So get them to do something. So thank you to those of you that are typing in now and talking to me. That's lovely. Getting you to activate your hands, to type in, to give 1-word reactions. If you're on Zoom, to kind of do a thumbs up when you can see people. Get them to write something down. It doesn't have to be interactive. For your more introverted preferences, have them reflect and write down on their own notepads their thoughts. But getting them to engage with the content very early on from the start is really good. So if you don't like anything too way out there, you can just say something like, this is the agenda. You know, and you're talking about this, and the lunch break is at 12 o'clock. Even if you just get them to write down the lunch break, at least they're then talking to you. So depending on who you're working with, that might be your version of interaction. So you can do this from all levels of kind of like big to small. Brilliant. So let's have a pause for thought. I'm talking about pause for thought and using your hands. So let's do that right now. So I would like you to write down, ideally in the chat, but if not, on your own notepad, what you might do differently now. Thinking about head, heart, and hands, what might you do differently now? So just talk to me in the chat or in your own notebook. Brilliant. So thank you. So we've got some comments here. So asking questions like, for example, would you like to save time and money? Lindsay, that's brilliant. Yes. So getting them to interact with their hands, or obviously they can answer with their voice. That's also good. But getting them to answer questions. So open questions are brilliant. You can have a poll which asks people for different interactions as well. So thank you for sharing that. And that's fantastic. Yeah, thank you for your comments. Opening with a story, David. Yeah, opening with a story it really pulls people in because not many people do it. And we love stories. We are, we're born storytellers. This is how some of the ancient tribes communicate entirely, through stories. And so people love a story. So yeah, using that. And rearranging your intro talk where you're introducing as a guest speaker. Yeah. So when you're introducing a guest speaker, help them to get rapport first and credibility. So just introducing them with credibility, they can borrow off your rapport a little bit, but ideally make sure that they have time at the beginning to build rapport with the audience as well if you've got guest speakers. Yeah, thank you for that. Good. Okay, so let's take a look at what are we going to do. So thinking of something that you've learned from today's very speedy. I find half-hour live sessions are great because you've got time, but they're really quite speedy. I'm used to being with people for a whole day, so I feel like it's been a speedy session, but hopefully you've got something of value from it already that you can change and make action on. So it's all about taking action, right? Please take action. So think of something that you've got upcoming, an important communication, a presentation, a pitch, an email, a phone call, maybe even a family communication. Think about something that you've got coming up and think about one action that you're going to take. And I would love for you to pop in the chat, what one action do you commit right now to taking? Like, it can just be a tiny action, but I'd love you to do something differently as a result of this session. Pop that in chat. And later, once you've done it, like tomorrow, whenever it is, maybe it's this afternoon, I would love for you to tag me on social media, wherever you're joining me from. Maybe you're on LinkedIn, maybe you're on Facebook, maybe you're on YouTube. Just tag me and say what you did. Tell me how it went. Send me a photo, maybe. Show me your slide. I'd love to get this kind of live thing going, this energy, this build. I'd love to see you every week. I'd love to see your process and how you are improving. So please share with me. That's part of why I'm doing it live. Trust me, it'd be way easier for me to just record a video and pop it up. That is not what this is about. This is about hearing from you live. And in fact, though, if you are watching on record, that's also okay, because when you pop in the comments, even though the live is over, I can go back and have a look at the comments. So even if you're watching this on rerun, please do everything I'm saying. Put your comments in, because I can react. And if you tell me the one action, say my one action is this, I might be able to give you some resources or some help, but I'd love to hear from you as to how it went. So Plaxi, your first webinar is in 2 weeks. You're going to do, what are you going to do differently there then for that? That'd be great. Cecile, you're going to share a point of view that might be provocative to get some feelings. Yeah. So so you don't want to break rapport. So you don't want to share any stories that break rapport. You want to keep on that. And if you want to have some feelings later on, that's probably the best place to do it. So feelings is good. At the beginning, to build rapport, we want feelings that people agree with and broadly agree with. And then if you want to do anything a bit more risky, we'll do that later on, which will be a different episode. So let's move on then, and I'll carry on having a look in the chat and see what else is coming up. But let's move on. What I'd love you to do, an action, I'd love you to scan. If you haven't already subscribed to the Dee-Brief newsletter, I would love for you to do so. What you need to do, it's all this modern technology, just show your phone to this QR code And then if you open the camera, then a link should come up on the camera, and it should take you straight through on LinkedIn. This will only work on LinkedIn if you're on LinkedIn. And it should take you through to the LinkedIn newsletter. And I would love for you to get subscribed to that. Why? Well, that's the only place where if you subscribe to it, you'll get but you'll get notifications regularly, i.e. for every week's live. And you'll be able to get, by following that, you'll know where the reruns are. So this is the only place where everything's going to be in one place. Otherwise, you need to go and find it, but it will be on your feed. But this, if you subscribe to the newsletter, we're also going to give you extra tips. You're going to get the cheat sheets. So each episode will have something extra coming with it as well. So well worth doing. I would love for you to do that. And I really appreciate your support. I love the fact that you've turned up today, especially to my live audience. Thank you so much. And anyone watching on rerun, hello to you too. So that's what I'd love you to do. Schedule in every Friday, 11 o'clock. Let's do this. We're not going to do it on Good Friday, but other than that, it's going to be 12 weeks, 12 episodes. So we've done one today. So it's going to be, I guess, 13 weeks. So we're not doing Good Friday, but other than that, we're doing every Friday, 11 o'clock to 11:30. So the next episode is next week. So please schedule that. And that is going to be all about how to structure your communication, whatever your communication is, in a way that works for you every time. So the structure is really important. You can use it if you're new to communications, but also the most advanced people I work with, some senior sales teams, Richard, who I worked with, he was a Sky reporter and a professional speaker, still loves the structure, the SAS. If you know me, if you worked with me in the olden days, it used to be called the format, but now it's called the Simply Amazing Structure as of, I don't know, the last 10 years or something. So it's really, really useful. Anyone can benefit from it. So, so please do come and join me next week to learn about the structure. Some of you already know about that. And spread the word, please. I would really appreciate you inviting other people. And I know that my time is coming up. So please, if you've got to go, that's great. And if not, feel free to post in some comments and I'll have a look afterwards. But spread the word with others. Please share this recording and send your feedback and questions and ideas. And I would really appreciate that. And thank you so much for watching live. Thank you for joining me. And if you can't scan the QR code because you're in your car, no worries. Christine has put the link to the newsletter into the comments. So these comments, I think I'm right in saying, although we're new to this, I think these comments will stay there. So you can go back into this thread and you can have a look at the comments, and the LinkedIn newsletter is there. So some people wanting a link to the slide deck. So Christine, you can remind me of that. Other way to access the QR codes. Yeah, good. Thank you very much for joining. Have a lovely weekend. And thank you for joining me. I hope to see you next week. And please, in the comments, talk to me. Let me know what you enjoyed. Take care. Thank you for joining me.